Welcome to Films and Stuff with your hosts, Pete Mitchell and Ethan Hunt.
Hi, everybody. Welcome to the Films and Stuff podcast. I'm Ethan, and I'm joined by Pete.
How's it going?
Everything's great today. Tell us, Pete, what's happening?
So today we've got a very special guest with us, our very esteemed guest, Mr. Uwe Boll.
Hello.
For those of you living under a rock for the past 2 decades, Uwe is probably considered, to me at least, the pioneer of adapting video games to feature films. The most recent commercial successes of the Super Mario Brothers movie, The Last of Us TV series, the Uncharted movies, all of these movies, I would say is directly attributed, or at least partially attributed if you're a cynic, to the vision of Uwe. So without further ado, please welcome and virtually applaud Mr. Uwe Boll to the Films and Stuff podcast.
Yeah, hi.
Welcome. Thanks for joining us today.
Yeah, I'm happy to be here, but I don't want to take the credits for all other video games. So that is not true. Even before, my first video game-based film was House of the Dead, and even before were some video game films like Wing Commander, Street Fighter. So there were a few before I started. But I think I did the most of them, basically.
Right.
Back when you were making, these films, it was, not as commercially popular, to be linking cinema and video games. Yeah. And now it's become really like a genre of its own. And almost every, significant video game intellectual property is now somehow trying to either chase its own standalone movie or its own universe or, a television series. What do you think of all these, proliferation of games turn into, proper entertainment now? Is it surprising to you, or is it a trend that you saw coming for a long time?
No, I think I saw it coming. Even 20 years ago, 15 years ago, comic book sales were not even close to video game sales, right? So now it's shifted totally. I think we have a lot of Marvel and DC comic book films because they're kind of legendary comics, but who actually reads Batman now? Or, I don't think there are a lot of comic book readers, but there are like billions of video game players. And so that shifted. But in the beginning, also the time where I did it, so I think in the beginning, it was really this situation where they were like not treated well. Like you didn't get a lot of money to make them. They didn't get the biggest distribution. They didn't get the biggest advertising money behind it. That was a rough pass, I think, to then growing bigger and bigger. And then we had also like this very, very big video game based films like World of Warcraft or Prince of Persia like 5-6 years ago. Yeah. And they were not so good. That was another problem, that a few of that films also failed in a way and didn't deliver the quality like classic comic book driven films.
Pete's a huge comic book fan. I think between the two of us, we're both into gaming, we're both into entertainment. But when we talk about the lore of, a lot of the comic books, Pete is really the person who has that appreciation for comic books. So I turn to him for a lot of these things. And he says it himself, which is there's a small subset that's focused on reading comic books, but a much, much wider audience, that's playing video games now.
We grew up with comics, right? I love comics. I had a huge collection from comics. I still have a lot. What my kids reading now. I grew up with Lieutenant Blueberry, Asterix, Lucky Luke. Like all this. I have all the exemplars from. I was never really, of course, Donald Duck, Mickey Mouse, this kind of stuff.
Yeah, Disney.
But I was never really too much into Superman and Batman. I liked Spider-Man more, like just comic book wise, and the Fantastic Four and stuff like this.
Yeah.
But now it's so tough to get your own kids reading anything.
Yeah.
It's just that they are like playing Fortnite and, and you can leave them in a room and leave for a day and nothing will happen. So, that is the reality. Yeah. And I think the market, of course, the film industry, they're always trying to follow trends. and a lot of times maybe without really whatever understanding it, and they just go for it. But I think recently they take it more serious and stuff gets way better. I mean, The Last of Us is an amazing TV series based on the game, and I think that is the best thing what was ever done based on a game.
Yeah, it was superb. We both loved it a lot.
As someone who's directed video game adaptations, and obviously you've also read comics, you understand that. Do you find it easier to work with source material, or do you think that it's easier to work with source material? Because when you look at something like a comic book, you have a lot of established stories already that are maybe not purpose built for screen, but I would imagine are more easily applied to a cinematic experience or even a televisual experience. Whereas, a video game, I mean, for example, look at the Mario movie that's just come out, or the Sonic movies that have come out in the past few years. There's some lore, but it's not really a made for TV or a made for cinema story, as it were.
Yeah, and I think also comics, of course, because they're kind of books with pictures.
Yeah, exactly.
They tell the story more in a classical sense, how a film also works. So to have an exposition, to have a conflict, this kind of things. And I think that's one of the reasons comic book films are still bigger and bigger successes as video game based films in general. But it also got this kind of negativity around video game films because you can never make it right for the fans of a game. Even if you have, like on Dungeon Siege, for example, I mean, whoever played the game, there are no real characters, right? There is no development, and you have like a top view and stuff like this. Same, I mean, House of the Dead, everybody knows it, but the only thing I could really grab story-wise was how the zombies act and look, and and the surrounding. You go to an island, for example, and then you have a struggle on the island for survival, but you didn't have like a real story in House of the Dead. Mm-hmm. And that is different in the comic books. You have a little deeper character development, and the whole surrounding and the supporting parts are existing. And if you make a film out of a video game, you have to make all this up. And then you make it up, and then other people think, how can you do this? Like, how can you put some story into this specific game? And and I think that was also one of the reasons I think the studio started later to really get into it more, because they were scared about the fan backlash, what happened over and over and over again. You barely have a video game based film with great reviews.
Yeah. I mean, Pete and I talked about this when Halo came out, I think maybe last year, which was, to be consistent with the story, you may not be appealing to a wider audience. But if you're trying to appeal to a wider audience, you're not going to remain faithful to the game, and you're going to really alienate, all the hardcore gamers. So, Pete and I went through, the entire season of Halo, and we were both really, really disappointed because we both loved the game. We were, huge fans of it, and we wanted to love the TV series, but it just didn't pan out, because it wasn't really a faithful adaptation.
Yeah, and this is the thing. That is the exact problem, mm-hmm. Like how you get true to the source material, even if there was not a lot of source material. I mean, in Halo, you have way more story as in House of the Dead, right? So you could use more. And if you would do Call of Duty or something, you have also more to work with if you write a script. So but I mean, that is the thing. It's like I think it's a work in progress. Yeah. But I think also that if you I don't think because of the HBO show now from The Last of Us that they will sell more games. I don't think that.
Right.
I think more that people say, wow, that's based on a game. Great. It was a great show. And the other way around too. You have a great game and then the film comes. And when the film came from World of Warcraft, whatever, I don't think they sold more World of Warcraft.
Probably not.
Yeah. Probably not.
Yeah. It's not really, same with comics. It's not like you run now because a new Batman film comes and they sell more comic books. It's now basically this kind of, you have a best-selling book like Harry Potter, and then you make the film out of it. And both are parallel successes and making money parallel from each other, and not necessarily because there was a book and or there was a film.
Yeah, I think you're right. I don't think they drive sales for each other. I think they're just kind of separate streams of revenue, and there might be even some people that don't recognize that the original was based on a comic book or a game itself.
And perhaps also it's risk mitigation for the studios. I mean, I don't know what your feeling is, but I feel these days, if you compare movies and if television shows in the last, let's say, decade to 20, 30 years ago, the risk-taking appetite of studios has decreased a lot. I think that there are certain kinds of movies that studios just don't want to touch, and they're relegated either to independent movie status or, maybe 5-6 people get together, film it on handy cams and iPhones, and then they release it on some small streaming service or maybe even YouTube directly. I can't remember the last pure comedy I saw in the cinema. I can't remember the last parody movie or spoof movie that I've seen in the cinema. Whereas, in the 70s and the 80s and the 90s, these things were a dime a dozen. It wasn't all action movies. It wasn't all just superhero movies or whatever that we see today.
We had that whole discussion recently. I had it with some other film fans, and we all saw in the culture we're living in now, the worst thing what happened is to comedy. Like, for example, my postal comedy would nobody do anymore. They would be all getting canceled. There are too many jokes under the belt, whatever, right? So, and the same with, I'm a big Naked Gun fan or Airplane.
Oh, yeah.
Love it.
Classics.
Totally. And you do it now, and they would totally lose their shit. And all the Twitter trolls try to cancel everybody who worked on the film. And then and the studios are always exactly how you say, they go with the flow, right? So they think, okay, that makes the most money. That is what we do. And then they're running empty at one point. I think nobody, I mean, when I grow up, I'm older as you guys. So, but the thing is, like, Star Wars was a real event. It's not like 1 week later, Black Adam, and then another week later, Avengers, and another week later, Thor, and then Aquaman. So, and I think that, I'm pissed off about this way too many comic book films, way too many this kind of event CGI driven films, so that I don't enjoy it anymore because it's not like new or different. It's too much of the same. And then I don't think also, like, comic books who nobody read in the first place, they don't need a full film franchise where, a lot of comic books where you think, like, what is this? I never heard about it till they're coming in the film world. And I think the studio's in a way making a big mistake. Comedies are now really a victim of the new political landscape, that everybody is scared to do things what could offend somebody. And that is basically the end of comedy, because it's, of course, the point of comedy to go like to things that you have to laugh about it because it's so ridiculous. And I don't think also a lot of people who want to cancel everybody the whole time, they don't get it because they're like caved in themselves in this kind of, now we have to educate the young people or whatever, that you cannot offend anybody anymore because that is a crime. And I think that it's a very bad culture, and we have to fight it. But it looks like the big media conglomerates are not really trying.
I mean, it's one of the things we've noticed as well, and I think you pointed out a trend that we've discussed previously, which is the challenge of the superhero movies and the universes. Even though we're huge fans of them, you really need to dedicate a lot of time and effort to staying on top of them. And that means all of the movies, that means all of the spin-off television shows. Otherwise, you're really not going to be able to keep current. And anyone who's trying to, pick up one of those standalone movies, without the background, I think is really lost, because the plots are becoming more and more complicated and intricate. And as you've mentioned, we've kind of lost the art of having standalone date night popcorn films where you just go and you have a good laugh or you have a good cry or whatever the genre is, and that's the end of it. Then you can, move on to the next one. Everything now is sequels and prequels, and there's a great place for that, especially when you're talking to two Star Wars fans. But there is something to be said about just kind of a one-off film that is successful on its own merits.
Yeah, and I think that the genre what still exists as this kind of popcorn thing is horror, but you also don't want only horror film, you know. So, and when I grew up, you had the comedy times, and you had, well, in Europe at that point was Louis de Funès, Bud Spencer, and Terence. So there were a lot of European comedians too that made funny films, and they were successful, and that never came back. Basically, that didn't really exist. And so out of the US, I miss films even like Hangover.
Oh man, we love Hangover. Yeah.
I love that kind of film. And they would be like, oh no, I don't want to do it. Or a lot of these romantic comedies who getting still done, they were also better in the past because they got a little more humor in it. Now it's all this, this romantic melodrama thing takes over the comedy.
That's right.
And I think that, it's a very bad situation. I hope they break free. And I had a chat with somebody, a producer from LA, and he said, if you would make a film like Naked Gun right now, it would be a mega hit. The problem is that it's not necessary. Let's say you do a film like this, and it's a great film, and everybody you show it to is laughing his ass off. But then the problem comes, are you getting the screens? Are you getting the trailer played in TVs? Because then you have to advertise it properly, right? So, and then too offensive, the trailer. Too offensive this, and the screens you maybe don't get. So you basically have a great film, but then in the end, the people watch it on a streamer because you couldn't get that big release going. Yeah. So I hoped a little that the streamers, when they came up with like Amazon and Hulu and everybody, Paramount Plus now, that they go more rogue, that they go more like, let's have the horror Netflix, whatever, like that they starting developing genres and going more edgy. Yeah. But I see the opposite happens. I think they were more edgy in the beginning, and now they're getting total mainstream.
I mean, I thought Hulu would be, had the opportunity to be a little bit more edgy because they were the upstart and they were independent. Now they're owned by Disney. So of course they're going to, change their focus a little bit. But I think you're right. That would be interesting if there's a streaming platform that were focused a little bit more on independent films and edgier films. And it was a place where you could see some, very, very good cinematic works, but not necessarily widely distributed works.
I think that also comes down maybe to the economics, right? Because, I mean, even 15 years ago, Netflix was really the only one, or maybe 10 years ago, Netflix was the only one. And now and that's, also when they were producing some really excellent hits. But then you also now have HBO Max or Paramount Plus or Disney Plus or Roku or, hundreds and hundreds of different channels. And even the ones that were independent, like Crunchyroll, which was just about anime, nothing else. They just did anime. That got acquired by Sony. And so almost like this consolidation by the studios to say, hey, we want that niche, so we're going to do that. But now that you're under the Sony logo or under the HBO logo, we can't have you be as edgy as you once were or doing the things you were because we need you to follow the Sony corporate guidelines.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, I'm worried about HBO, right? If they omit the name for real, I think HBO is like Coca-Cola, right? So, I mean, that was like, I'm a big boxing fan. And when they canceled boxing like 6, 7, 8 years ago, they just got out of boxing. And I felt like, how is that even doable? They made boxing. Yeah. Like the channel who built Ali and all that fighters, they went out of boxing. I just couldn't believe it. And now they're getting even rid of the name. Why not keep HBO and forget Max? I don't get it. And I like also that HBO was always more the edgy stuff. the harder stuff, the more violent stuff. When you watch like shows on HBO, there could be a lot of R-rated stuff, and I loved it. Now they water down as the media conglomerate they are, and in the end, they will be like Disney Plus. Also when Disney, I sold a lot of my films to Fox. I worked a lot with Fox, like worldwide together on films. And then when Fox got sold to Disney, everybody was fired I ever had contact with. They were just gone. And so now you have Fox basically dissolving. And Fox was also more an edgier studio. Where you could do a little harder films, R-rated. Yeah. They were not like shy to do stuff like this. And when they got swallowed up by Disney, I knew immediately like that is the end of Uwe Boll films in corporations with this company, basically, right?
You mentioned like Airplane and Naked Gun 2.5. Like, what are some of the other things that you're watching right now that you think are just amazing?
Yeah, right now, I watched, for example, what I like on Netflix, Beef.
Yes. Yeah.
That was something edgy, right?
Yeah,
and
it was.
Different. And you start watching it, you're hooked right away, and you think that goes totally sideways. I think a really good show. And of course, you have so much choices. Paramount Plus, I get here in Germany with Sky. On Sky, basically, and so I watched all the Mayor of Kingstown with Jeremy Renner,
Yellowstone.
I mean, Yellowstone is so addictive, right? So you watch it, it's totally, because they're all in jail for murder. With what they're doing there. It's like they're killing more people like Ozark or Narcos,
right?
And acting like nothing ever happened. You just throw the bodies over the street corner down into Wyoming. I mean, it's completely absurd.
Wyoming seems so scary. Pete and I say it all the time. Like, we thought it would be like such a peaceful place to live. We will never go there. Having seen how much violence there is without like any law and order.
Yeah. And I mean, but it's a great shows because they're also, because they are harder, they're more edgy, they're more clear, straight in the face, So, and there's so much stuff. The Last of Us recently I finished now. Succession I have to finish.
Succession.
Yeah, it's very very cynical, but this is basically a show you would expect from HBO,
right?
And so that is the thing. It's like I think in general that a lot of TV series are better as the films. A lot of films falling flat. Netflix originals, the films are a lot of times very disappointing. What I feel also where they spend a lot of money for, and you think like, what's the point? And they cannot compete with the franchises of the major studios. When they tried that with the big Michael Bay action film for 150 million or this stuff, I don't think that stuff works on a streamer. I think it's just like wasted money. You're better off doing like $30 million harder genre films as you try to compete with like Batman or Avengers, but with a totally new story, with no franchise potential, and with like the people don't know what it is, and then nobody cares. It's a lot of movies like this that just disappear. And Apple, I had a meeting with Apple last November, and they said we have to be totally politically correct. We cannot offend everybody with anything. What's the point then? I mean, you should shut down, basically, right? I mean, because it's this kind of, for Apple, it's just an advertising spend.
Right.
But do they really need this? I mean, for what? It's not that they make $1 more really in their sales because they have films on Apple. I think they're making all the money with their hardware, like with the phones and selling.
It's really funny you say that because we just spoke yesterday about Ghosted, the newest feature film on Apple.
Yeah, I couldn't watch it. I watched 20 minutes.
Yeah, but in terms of what your point is, which is I think the correct strategy for streamers, is rather than Amazon spending $750 million on Lord of the Rings season 1 or $300 million on one season of Citadel, I think they would be much better served for its users to say, okay, here's 10 $40 million movies or 10 $30 million movies. And maybe out of those 10, 3 of them are successful critically or however you want to judge it. Because I think with streaming platforms also, what defines success, we'll never know.
No, it's also like sometimes it's luck.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's whatever. There is a social media kind of somebody makes a little TikTok video out of something and everybody jumps on it. It would be interesting to see what was the original trigger for like Money Heist or Squid Game, right?
Yeah.
So what happens there? Because normally stuff like this could be overlooked, but I'm sure there is a deeper thing to it, to Squid Games, why it got so much traction so fast. And I never really found anything about it. They all said it's a sensation, we're doing another season, whatever. But still, there had to be some trigger point what went on social media viral, that people put it on. I cannot imagine that it's just like Netflix loads it up and everybody's watching it out of the blue. I think there was something else. So, and I don't know what. So it's a good research thing for all of us to find out. And sometimes it's the right thing at the right time. When you go through the new releases, and then, for example, with Beef, nobody told me about it. I saw the logo, I saw the poster, I watched 5 minutes, and then binge watched the whole thing. Yeah. I loved it, right? And that is the thing. And that, of course, the opposite happens a lot, where you start watching something and you think, "What's the point? I'm just not anymore," and you switch it off. But Beef really hit a trigger point for me, at least.
Yeah, the same for us. I think what Pete and I do is on a weekly basis, we go through the different streaming platforms and we assign each other shows that we think it might be okay, but we don't really want to waste our time on it. And then we each promise to watch 2 or 3 episodes. We call it Streamer Skip. And then we report on it the following week. And I think that Pete assigned me to Beef, and I didn't know anything about it either. I probably never would have guessed that it would be amazing. And I did the same thing that you did. I watched 5 minutes. I told Pete, "You've got to watch this. It's amazing." And then I stayed up for the next 2 nights, binging it. It was exceptional. And on Netflix, that's pretty rare. We don't find that many that we were compelled to watch them, straight through on Netflix. But that was really a gem for us.
Yeah, but it's also I think also where they need a little more courage, the decision makers of the streamers, is with, Gangs of London.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love it because it's so violent. It's
it is very violent. Yeah.
Excellent action. And you think they're really shredded the people. And, but that made it spectacular.
Right.
That made it different to true crime crime stories we saw over and over, where they are all okay, but not like blowing you away. But the Gangs of London, I really love as a property. How is that told? And with Apple specifically, when you go through the films, I think they're just trying. You come in with big stars, they're paying a lot of money for it. When I was there, they told me under 25 million and never did a film. At all, and then I watched that Jennifer Lawrence film when nothing happens, nothing. You could shot that film. That was $2 million to do, basically. She was alone with that black guy, talking the whole time. And you think, okay, they greenlit this because they got Jennifer Lawrence, and only because they got Jennifer Lawrence, right? So because if somebody would read the script, they would say that is a boring melodrama, what nobody would care about, and nobody cared about it. And the same, I think, with the film with Will Smith, the big slave drama they did. Everything what happens in that film, what they shot for $150 million, was told before 10 times. There was nothing new in. When Tarantino did Django, that was new. It was different. It was just a totally different approach, a different form of storytelling. And the whole slavery thing was kind of the back burner of a Tarantino film. And it totally worked. I loved Django, right? So, but that film was for me like an old-fashioned, no new information about anything, totally predictable film. And so what's then the point, especially on Apple? I mean, not a lot of people have Apple, but the Apple Plus, right? It's the worst of the streamers because nobody buys it, because there's also nothing like Yellowstone. Paramount Plus goes a little more edgy. The Offer was great on Paramount Plus about the making of The Godfather. Great show. Teller. I loved that, right?
Yes.
And it reminded me why I want to make films in the first place. So, but if you come with Yellowstone, if you came with Yellowstone, and before Yellowstone, Taylor Sheridan was nobody, right? So it was not a famous producer. He did The Wind River and one other film, and they would totally pass on him. Everybody, they would say, "Are you insane? You have only strippers, all women, just like there's no gay, there is no diversity in it." It's just Yellowstone is Yellowstone. It's just a story told like 20 years ago. They would told it like this. In today's time, they come and try to have Asian, Chinese rodeo cowboys in it. Like if you go to a different show, if you go to Amazon or something, or Apple, they would totally try to make it totally diverse.
It sounds like your passion for filmmaking and for entertainment like hasn't diminished at all. It sounds like you've been inspired by like a lot of the stuff, whether it's good or not good, that you're seeing now, right?
Yeah, I mean, I'm besides being a filmmaker, I'm a film fan, right? So I mean, since I'm 10, I want to make films and watch.
Can you be one without the other? Can you be a filmmaker without being a film fan? Do you think?
Maybe not a very good one, but but I think also like when you talk now to the younger generation, like when you say like the offer about making of The Godfather, then you will find that 80% never watched The Godfather. Where you feel like, okay, then you don't have to watch that show because you never had film education in a way. A lot of people, film education started, of course, when you're younger. When I grew up in the movie theaters at that point was Apocalypse, and now there was Halloween, there was Jaws. I watched that on screen when that came up. I was already alive, right? So, but I still think if you're 20 years younger as me or 10 years younger, you still have the duty to watch this then on DVD or video. You cannot never watch Apocalypse Now or The Godfather if you say you're a film fan, because you're not. I mean, that is like your duty to find out what were the masterpieces of the past before, So, I mean, I think it's very, very important. So, but I mean, I felt after 5 years not shooting films with the film I just did, First Shift in New York, a police film. So it's like kind of my comeback film. And no, I felt like A, I'm bored. B, I want to make more films. And I think also this kind of films, what I'm doing with Rampage, Assault on Wall Street, this kind of films there are not so many people doing stuff like this. So, and that is basically what will go for moving forward to do like straight stories, like films like French Connection, whatever, Heat, this kind of films I love. And I mean, it was the first film. I hope I have 2-3 more in development right now. I hope end of the year I can shoot another one. Yeah.
So your next film coming out is First Shift, right? That's the one that you were mentioning?
We're in post-production right now. And we have Ethan Manikis is editing it. He did Sin City, From Dusk Till Dawn. So very good editor. And it's just a police film, what plays in one day, where two guys, like a woman and a guy, they never worked together before. So they're driving together and doing the first shift together. And then you have this episodic things, right? A knife stabbing thing, a mafia killing, a home suicide. So you have like little episodes where they're getting confronted with during the first shift.
And you wrote it yourself. You're the writer. You're the director as well. I mean, what? I mean, I don't want to say what's your inspiration for the film, but why did you decide this is your feature comeback film? Like it was just a story that you're really passionate about, or you thought that like it was a timely topic for like society now? What drove you to bring this?
I would say two things. I wanted to do actually another film before, but I couldn't get it getting done. 12 Hours was a film where a guy has to kill 5 people in 12 hours or his family's dead. So that was full development. We wanted to shoot in Cape Town, but I couldn't get the cast. I wanted a star doing the main actor part, because you're like an American guy basically all alone in Africa, and he has to kill random people he doesn't know why. So stuff like this, and you cannot. I don't think you can shoot a film like this without having a face everybody knows.
Okay.
And I don't know what it was, because I love South Africa, but all that people I asked, like James McAvoy, for example, Kit Harington from Game of Thrones, they all passed, even if they liked the story. But I don't know. And I said, what is it? The money? What is it? I do something else now. It's a straightforward action film. Maybe I don't want to do the action film right now. Or the agent said right now he's not available for something. So I tried for half a year to get the star, and I didn't. And then I had basically, I a lot of times I just write down ideas. And the thing with First Shift was an older idea I had, but I didn't have like the little episodes.
Okay.
I wrote down, would be cool to just follow in Brooklyn, 2 cops, 12 hours, and they having a lot of drama, a lot of things going on. And then because the 12 hours fell apart, it was around Christmas time, I was sitting down, I wrote in 2 weeks, I wrote the whole thing.
Really?
Yeah. And then I felt like, because I have friends in New York too, like as a film producer, and I said, look, can you hook me up? Can we shoot that in Brooklyn like in March? Can we do this? Yeah, so we went in prep right away in January and shot in March. And I mean, the good thing in New York, of course, besides the locations, is the actors are all there.
Right.
You know, you find actors, you just say, I need you for 2 days, I need you for 3 days.
No one has to travel, no logistics. Right.
Yeah, exactly. We pick you up in the morning, every night you can sleep in your own house, you know, like stuff like this. And that was a real asset to have the little parts. I have very good actors for, like James McAvoy from Orange is the New Black, plays like a family father who kills his family. And then Daniel Soli, he was the mafia guy. You know, The Deuce with James Franco?
Yes.
Yes, he was the badass mafia guy who killed everybody the whole time.
Okay.
Fantastic.
So I hired him. Gary Pastore was in 10 Scorsese films, the mafia guy. He plays also another mafia guy. So little parts are full in that film with people you know.
Okay.
The way you see that guy, oh, I know that guy. And then they're not the superstars in, but it's an ensemble film. And Kristen Renton, she was the female lead from Sons of Anarchy. She played the female cop. Gino Pesi from Shades of Blue with Jennifer Lopez. He was the lead with her. So he plays the other cop.
Okay.
So and it was very positive because you had this kind of road movie, but I needed only the 2 cops the whole time, and everybody else, you need a day or 2. So it's easier to get supporting actors with bigger names when you say, look, when can you do this? Which schedule is the thing around you, and make it happen. Yeah. So no, I think it will be a good film, and it will be a different film, not necessarily the same what I did before. But I'm not the director when you see everything I did, who did always the same stuff. I went all genres and different, from fantasy to horror to thriller to crime, you know, and I think it was the right move, because otherwise I would still try to cast that other film. And, you know, I mean, when I read there are some directors, if they need 5-6 years for a film, I know why, because they have this kind of passion to do, that is my next film, and then they continue forever. And I feel like it's also about the work, right? So when you want to do something, you should do it, and not like, it's not that I don't want to do 12 hours. I will still do 12 hours, and I will give it another shot to get another actor, you know, and then we try to do it again.
Oh, but 12 hours has to be filmed in Cape Town, you think, right?
No, it can be, that is the thing. It could be anywhere, as long you have the guy doing it not in his hometown, basically, right? So because you need to be in a foreign environment, not in your own country in a way, because then nobody cooperates with you. Then you have really problems logistically. You have no clue where to go. That you need, right? You could do it also, you could do it in India. You could do it in Romania, Bulgaria. Then you have to change the story a little, that it's like mafia guys in Romania doing it or something. And in our story, it's the the opposite political party wants to take over South Africa, and they want to kill a few people that are in their way.
Right.
Like, who could stop them taking power. So it's more a coup revolutionary thing. And it fits what I think, because South Africa, maybe that's the reason they didn't want it to go. South Africa got more unsafe.
Right.
It got, it's not only a holiday country anymore. It's a lot of murder and stuff. And maybe that was but why they didn't tell me that, right? So why they don't say, look, if you shoot that film somewhere else, I'm doing it with you. They never told me the reason why they're passing on the offer. But I personally love South Africa. I shot Darfur there. I shot Tunnel Rides there. I have their very good producer, Chris Rowland, I can work with. And the light is great in South Africa. The locations are good. The crews are good, actually, and they're very motivated. So you don't go nighttime out, right? So, I mean, it is the thing. I think what be protected, be in a hotel with security, and then don't walk around at 2 a.m. in the back alley somewhere, or, so, I mean.
It's good life advice. Not just there. It's good life advice.
Yeah, you can be I think you can be unsafe and safe everywhere on the planet.
Can I ask, so now that you've done First Shift in the US, in New York, in terms of practical, shooting, what do you find are some of the difference in terms of culture or environment between shooting in the US versus in Europe versus, South Africa or wherever else you've shot?
The mentality is a little different. In Europe, the crew, they see themselves more as artists.
Okay.
I had the feeling now in New York, they're just in for the money. It's like the motivation was not really like from the technical crew or whatever. I had 7 people from Germany there. All the camera people were from my end from Germany. So the base crew I had with me, but then the electricians, the grips, whatever, they were like not really, let's say, trying to make a great film. It was more like trying to get overtime money. So, and you have in countries where, of course, it's cheaper to shoot in South Africa or Bulgaria or Romania, the daily fees are way lower. But you have also what I saw more motivation. Like people are more interested in what they're doing. They're very happy to work on the film set. I worked a lot in Canada, very good crews in Vancouver, and I mean, I have so many friends there. It's worked very well and positive. So I don't want to trash the crew, but New York was by far the most expensive daily rates I ever saw. And I think after Corona, it really went over the top. When you pay now $800 a day for an electrician, I think that is ridiculous. I mean, think about, they're always acting they're so poor, but the reality is if you work on film, you make shitloads of money. Even as a technician, you make like 50, 20 grand a month. So don't be so whiny and act the whole time like you're like working class or something. And for this, they were not like eager enough to help or, like being like in a way supportive. So.
Well, we're excited to see First Shift come out. I mean, we know it's in post-production. We're really excited that you can hopefully make 12 hours. And we'd love to hear about like any of the other like intellectual properties or ideas or passions that you have that, you think you're going to be exploring because, this seems like a really exciting, time for you where you've kind of like not relaunched, but you've, like doubled down and, are really going forward with a lot of things that you've got in your mind.
Yeah, look, when you look in the past, so I had Fear Effect, but we couldn't get the movie done. I had Baldur's Gate, never made the movie. So there was more stuff in the back, what nobody knows, what I had my hands on, and then you remember the World of Warcraft and they've completely flipped out because Uwe Boll wants to do the World of Warcraft. And then never ever was Uwe Boll do anything. And then they made a shitty movie themselves, basically. I mean, I'm not a fan of the World of Warcraft movie. Yeah. And then I had a big discussion with also a gaming podcast, and they said, because they were Postal fans, they said, look, the only game only Uwe Boll could make a film out, but nobody else should do it, is Grand Theft Auto.
Oh, really? That would be amazing.
That would be very interesting.
Yes, because they said, look, when you see your film Rampage and you see Postal, Grand Theft Auto is basically both.
Oh,
and it's true because it's cynical and funny, but it's also ultra violent and crazy. So
that would be super cool.
Yes.
Yeah. We're pulling for you. We want to see your name attached to this one. That would be really an amazing opportunity.
Unfortunately, the guys said they don't want to film at all. What is maybe the right decision? I don't know, So
Things change. Things change. Everyone says this at first, but that'd be an amazing collaboration.
But they should, and they are very rich, so they don't really have to do it for the money, right? So to get a big fee. I think they should think about what a studio would do with Grand Theft Auto. It would be shit. It would be not the movie you have to do because they will dim it down. It will be not like this what you have to do.
It needs to be a little bit gritty.
And someone like Trevor couldn't exist in this, let's call it this very sanitary and hygienic world of the studio environment, I think.
Yes, it would be a big disappointment. If Disney Plus says we do Grand Theft Auto, you can stop thinking about it. And I don't think the game, the owners of the property would be so stupid to do something with a studio like this. It would be the end of the franchise.
Well, we're sincerely pulling for you to somehow be able to get the rights for this. Maybe it won't happen in the short term, but that would be an amazing collaboration. We're definitely pulling for you.
Yeah. Contact them, tell them, work with Uwe on it. He's ready to roll.
If we speak to them, we will absolutely pass that message along. So we know that, you've got to go, you've got a busy press tour, going on. Can you just give our listeners a little bit of context, where they can see you next, how they can follow you, what are the big developments that they should be on the lookout for?
Yeah, I mean, the best is always like when you Google what's going on, First Shift, follow this. I'm on Facebook myself there are so many fake Uwe Bolls out, right? So you have, I'm on Facebook with Bush and Bin Laden on the photo. That is so my Facebook site, what I'm personally doing from Postal. And then I have Uwe Boll 7 on Twitter. I have Instagram, but I'm not doing myself. And it's too much. You can do only so much per day. And I cannot do this and post there and post this. So I do only Twitter and Facebook myself. And I have a podcast with Gary Otto from Florida, Uwe Boll Raw, where we talk sometimes every 2 weeks, sometimes every week, where we just talk more about politics. So I talk about films, but then we talk whatever about the status quo, what happened this week. Interesting story for the end of your podcast. So when we shot First Shift, there was the day where Trump was maybe getting arrested and the whole city we're driving with police cars, right? And we had a drone flying, but they had that defense drones up so they shot down our drone.
Really?
Yes, and it's gone. It's in the ocean with the material we shot.
Oh, there goes the footage.
Yeah, because they had the whole downtown because they were worried about riots or worried about whatever. So there was, and our drone guy was like, oh, fuck. And he said, because the drone has normally an automatic system, it flies back to you. So if the contact is gone, the drone comes back, but it fell down like a stone. And he said that had to be done from somebody else.
Oh, no.
So that was interesting. So, but there you see when your life collides with real life, with politics.
A good war story.
Yeah. Okay.
Uwe, it has really been a pleasure. Thank you so much for your time.
Perfect. Yeah, we talk soon, or we talk when the film comes out. We can do another podcast. Don't worry. Yeah.
It would be great to have you on again.
We'd be honored.
Okay.
Indeed.
Bye. Bye.
Thank you. Have a lovely day. And ladies and gentlemen, that is Uwe Boll on the Films and Stuff podcast. Pete, what'd you think? He's a super, super interesting guy, yeah?
Super interesting, great insights. Of course, whenever you have any writer, director, producer who's been in the industry as long as he has and has experienced as much as he has, whether you like his movies or not, whether you agree with his politics or not, that almost becomes irrelevant because you can't deny the dearth of experience that he has. He
is, the thing that struck me is that he is sincerely, first and foremost, an entertainment fan. Yes. He really loves cinema. he really loves, television. I mean, you can just see it in the things that he's watching, or the things that you and I are watching, right? He's not sitting at home watching like crazy like horror in his spare time. He's watching Succession. He's watching Yellowstone. He's watching The Last of Us. I mean, he's watching Beef, and he loves beef. I mean, it's just so
Relatable.
refreshing, yeah, relatable to meet someone who's making content, but first and foremost, they're a fan of good content.
Yeah. I think a lot of people, based on his filmography, based on some of the articles that have been written about him and his reputation, again, this is not a qualification as to whether that's warranted or not, but based on that, I imagine a lot of people have this preconceived notion of what Uwe Boll's like. And, maybe they're thinking, oh, well, he's probably sitting in a dark basement somewhere and the walls are blood red and he's watching like Saw on repeat and Scream and all these other horror movies that are like really gross.
While like Metallica or like Black Sabbath is playing in the background, right?
Clearly isn't the case, right? I mean, that is
he's got his 2 dogs and he's hanging out and he's watching, The Last of Us, just like
absolutely.
we all are.
Just like us, and
watching Black Adam and hating it, just like all of us.
Especially like us, exactly. So, and again, and he raised some really good points. I think one of the things that he puts in context that we may realize it inherently, but we've never vocalized it, is that he's right. When Star Wars came out, it was an event film. Most certainly the sequel, right? The first one came out of nowhere. No one knew what to expect. But when Empire Strikes came back, people were lining up around the block. Nobody wanted spoilers. It was a big thing. Now, event cinema happens on an almost weekly basis. And I mean, forget about it. The summer season, which I mean, Hollywood has somehow co-opted May into the summer months. They've said that, look, whatever is released in these summer months, every other week there's a Guardians movie or a Batman movie or whatever movie it is.
I have no complaints with this. I mean, I agree that there is maybe a little bit less anticipation for movies only because there's more movies. But I have to say, I don't find that unfortunate. I find what's unfortunate is maybe the absence of variety. When you look back to what we grew up with, the 80s and the 90s, you had an action movie, you had a dramatic thriller, you had a comedy, you had a rom-com.
Yeah.
And I think it was the variety which I miss, which is now, even if you're going to the cinema, there's different movies and they're not the same for sure, but they're within the same end of the spectrum in terms of the type, right?
Can you imagine if you went to the cinema, one week you saw Aliens, then the next week you saw Splash. The week after that, you saw The Weekend at Bernie's. 2 or 3 of those movies wouldn't even make it to the cinema landscape today. They'd probably be direct to streaming.
Man, super interesting guy. Wishing him all the best. I hope he continues making movies, and I really do hope he attaches his name to a great franchise in the future, because he really gives a crap, and I think that's what a good franchise needs is a steward to make sure that it's created in a way that's faithful to the audience.
Someone who respects not just the material, but also, as you just said, the audience, right? And I think that's kind of gone a little awry for a lot of people. And again, whether you like his movies or not, whether you agree with him or not, you cannot deny that he has a passion for it.
Indeed.
And so when you see people like that in the industry, I think, you and I have been very clear. We like to see movies succeed. We like to see people in the industry succeed. We don't sit here and, crap on The Rock or on Vin Diesel or anyone. And we don't do that with glee. We do that because it's unfortunate, but we don't sit here and take pleasure in doing that.
Definitely not for The Rock or Vin Diesel.
Yeah. Mostly anyway. But yeah, so good luck to Uwe. Hopefully he's able to secure whatever he wants to secure.
Indeed. And hopefully he visits us again on films and stuff.
Yeah.
Okay, listeners, that was Uwe Boll, the one and only on here, Films and Stuff. Pete, where should people check for the download of this episode and for some details on what Uwe's up to?
Yep. So we're obviously, as usual, we're available on all podcast platforms. Reach out to us on Instagram at Films and Stuff Podcast. Tweet at us at F&S Podcast. Email us aloha@filmsandstuffpodcast.com. And of course, like this video and leave a comment below. Both of those things help us out greatly. And, tell us, what do you think about Uwe? What are you hoping for? Is there a video game franchise like Grand Theft Auto that you think he's perfect for? Let us know.
We need a poll. We may do that. Okay. Keith, thank you. Uwe, who's long gone, we thank you. And listeners, thank you for joining. Catch us next week on Films and Stuff Podcast. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, everyone. Bye.
Thank you for listening to another episode of Films and Stuff. If you haven't already, please subscribe and review on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever podcasts are downloaded. Films and Stuff. There is no substitute.